you weren't with me on March 4th when I was at the meeting, and I felt like I was alone because dealing with my friend and not knowing what is responsible to be as a caregiver. And one of the worst things you have to deal with is a friend you love, and you have to remove that friend's independence. The number one issue that we fought till his dying day was I took away the car keys. Major, major, major. But the caveat was that we used his car to go to the doctor's office. So when we made the appointments, I drove him in the car, and he called his car, "This is my baby." And that's how we was able to compromise for me to do the grocery shopping, make the doctor's appointments, go and see him, but also understanding I couldn't be with him 24 hours a day. And in fact, I didn't have the skills and ability to cook 3 meals a day plus snacks. So I was able to find an organization that specializes in caregiving. Now, I paid his bills, did all the errands and that kind of stuff, but he needed a companion. A person alone, you're depressed, family won't come to see you, that you feel like a misfit. Can you feel me? Yes. And so as a consequence, you'll be amazed of the power of a caregiver that will come, fix him hot meals. He still had the skills to take his own shower and also get dressed, but the ideal of being able to fellowship, be able to fix the meals that he likes to eat, have the snacks he likes to eat, have a person as a companion to watch the movies of his choice of watching TV. Families, for some reason, just don't take the time. I don't care to take the time, and what they want to do is put him in a nursing facility. And he says, I want to live in my home until I die. And if nothing else I did for him was that I held him in his house until he passed away. Until he passed away. But in order to do the selection, where do you find a caregiver that you now have to entrust your loved one, the contents of his home, as well as the ability to care for his health? Well, I was blessed because someone introduced me to a company called Always Best Care Senior Services. And I will let this person share with you, who happens to be the owner and president, that has made a difference in my friend's life, in my life, and we'll be friends for life. Please help me recognize Miss Loli Ramezani.
Thank you. Thank you. I first want to thank Council Member Ralph Franklin for the invitation. I also wanted to thank his assistant, Ms. Thomas, who's been very supportive, and I wanted to thank all of you for being here. As the council member mentioned, my name is Loli Ramezani. I'm the president and owner of Always Best Care Senior Services. I'm also a certified senior advisor, which makes me semi-specialist, you know, having a better understanding and appreciation for what the elderly goes through. If you could move to the next slide, please. Thank you. In 2011, the first group of baby boomers born in 1946 turned 65. We are seeing the biggest and quickest aging of America's population in our history. We are all living longer due to the advancement in medicine and technology. So what happens with that? You know, the previous speaker talked about the Alzheimer's and dementia. Not all of us are going to get Alzheimer's and dementia, but many of us are going to live longer. We are going to live in our 90s. You know, we have clients that are in their 100s. So what happens is that the body goes through the normal process of aging. Just as, you know, I'm not as fast and as flexible as my teenage daughter is. As we get to be 80s, in our 80s and 90s, we are not going to be as flexible, as mobile as we were when we were in our 40s and 50s. So part of that creates some issues with our balances. As we get older, our hearing may not be as good as it used to be before. As we get older, our eyesight may not be as good as it was before. And all of these could create some challenges, some limitations for us, where we want to just do our daily routines, basically. If you could go to the next slide, please. So balance, the next slide, please. Thank you. So balance is one of the major issues. I've been in business for 4 years, and I've seen more than my share of individuals that are healthy, but because they have balance issues, they fall. And when they fall, either they break a bone, if it is a knee, a hip, or anything like that, or other issues that follow after a fall, right? So balance is a major issue. According to CDC, 1 out of 3 Americans over age 65 falls each year. Every 15 seconds, an adult is treated in the emergency room for a fall. So what also happens, what comes with that is that if we have challenges with our balance, with our mobility, especially if we do take a fall, then we will be concerned about leaving the house, right? We don't want to walk too much because we are afraid we may walk. As we get older, we may have challenges with our continence, right? Going to the bathroom may be difficult on one hand. On the other hand, getting to the bathroom, because it requires the walking to the bathroom. We may not be able to take the steps as fast as we should. So for those reasons, we may also have concerns and try to self-limit ourselves. We will self-isolate ourselves. There are a lot of our elderly, unfortunately, that because of these challenges, again, especially if they're living on their own, they decide not to leave the house as often. If we don't leave the house, if we don't leave the room, we don't go out to get some fresh air, it could change our moods. It could change our emotions, basically. Some resort to alcohol. Alcohol could cause more depression. And I listed suicide, and it is unfortunate, but the rate of suicide among the elderly is higher than the rate of suicide among the teens. One of the reasons is that, what I just talked about. The other reason is that, when somebody is a teenager, teenagers are expected to go to school. So if they don't go to school maybe 1 day or 2 days, or the parents or the family knows about them, then they can come and, help them. Whereas with the elderly, nobody is really expecting to see the elderly outside the house, especially if you're retired, you're at home. So you may stay at home for a longer period of time. Family is busy, children are busy with their own lives. So when you're at home by yourself, then all of those could cause, additional challenges. On top of that, as we get older, we are under more medication. Now, if you have the alcohol and then you have the medication, the side effects that the two would have, worse, would create more situation in you. So if you could go to the next slide. So what are the options? Councilmember Franklin talked about it. There are 2 options as we get older. And I think and again, the council member, repeatedly mentioned knowledge is power. Like I said, I've been in business for 4 years, and one thing I feel is part of my mission is also to educate and inform everyone about the options that are available. That doesn't mean that you have to make the decision now or today, but it informs you about what options are available, especially because getting a caregiver or moving out of the home is an emotional decision, and when it happens, more likely than not, we are going to be overwhelmed. And at that time, if we don't have any information about the options, it will create a much more challenging situation for us to make the right decision, right? So there are 2 options. One is that what is considered as age in place, and that is for everything that I talked about, some of those challenges or limitations that we may have, again, as we get older, that you hire a caregiver, one like council member was talking about, and the caregiver can help you with some of the activities, and I will go through some of that. The other option is that if home is not the best option, then you want to move into a community. And in both of these areas, our company can help with that, and I talk a little bit more about that. So if we could go to the next slide. Thank you. So I want to just mention briefly about our company. Our company is part of a franchise, but each office is owned and operated independently. Like I mentioned earlier, we have been in business for 4 years. State of California, as of last year, put a new mandate where all the in-home care companies need to be licensed through the state. There are many states across the country that had this requirement. California just established it as of last year. So we are licensed through the state and through the Department of Social Services. We are, as part of our business, we are insured, bonded, and we have workers' compensation. All the caregivers that we hire, they're our employees. They're not independent contractors. So we have an oversight over what they do. And as part of the licensing the requirement, the state also put a mandate that all the caregivers need to be registered and fingerprinted through the state. So if you go to the state website, you would see the name of my company and all the others that are licensed. And also if a caregiver, due to some criminal records, even 10, 20 years ago, we have seen this, maybe even a misdemeanor about 20 years ago. If they are not approved through the registration, you would see a comment next to their name. So this all is the state is putting some more steps in place to, create more safety and security for the elderly, and the state is recognizing the fact that we are getting older and there needs to be new measures, around that. So the next slide, please. So like I said, we can help in both areas. So the first option that I talked about was having a caregiver. And again, aside from Alzheimer's or somebody that may have a terminal illness, that obviously you do need additional assistance. Even for individuals that are healthy, right? As we get older and we live longer, because of the challenges we may need some assistance with bathing, right? Again, if balance is an issue, we are in the shower, the floor is slippery. If our blood pressure drops because there is too much steam or anything like that, we are not as flexible and agile as we were before. So it may take us a while to grab, that door or whatever it is that, that we need to hold on to. So having a companion or a caregiver in the house can be an assistant. They can still provide you your privacy, but be around to make sure that you do not fall. Some could be bedbound, some clients, so feeding, they would need assistance with that, with dressing, continence I talked about, using the toilet, going to the bathroom, transferring from, if someone is on a wheelchair, transferring from the wheelchair, to the bed, from the bed, to the car, providing transportation for doctor's appointments. A lot of times the family members would like to be with the mom or dad at a doctor, so what a caregiver can do is that they can drive the mom or dad to the doctors, then the children can meet at the doctor, be with the doctor, hear what what needs to be done, but then have some peace of mind that they can go back to their work, and mom or dad is being taken home by the caregiver in a safe environment. When they go home, they have proper meals. Nutrition is very, very critical. Even if you are younger, when you live on your own, a lot of time we don't feel like cooking for ourselves. Now, as we get older, again, balance, walking, if we are using a walker, grocery shopping, which requires transportation, all of that could be, could create more challenges. And if we are home and we are not eating properly, and we need to take medications also, again, all of that would have side effects, plus it would make us weaker, which puts us in a vicious cycle, right? So the idea is when we have a caregiver at home that can also help with light housekeeping, doing the laundry, making sure that the person is taking the medications that they're prescribed by the doctor, they don't forget to take those medications. All of this would allow the person to live independently longer at their home. I mean, that's the message I would like to get to everyone, is that for those who can afford it, there is no shame of having a caregiver at home. It is a luxury. And the caregiver would allow the person to be living independently, healthy, safely longer at home. The extent of the support that the caregiver can provide is based on a care plan. So based on an assessment, we determine with the individual, with the family members, how much care the person needs. And if the person, like a council member was mentioning, is able to do most of the things himself, the caregiver is not going to be, to forcing it on them that, well, I must be doing this, giving them a still, the privacy that they need. Thank you. Next slide, please. So the other option is that if home is not, the appropriate place to stay. There could be different conditions. One is that if the person, for instance, has Alzheimer's, and the kind of Alzheimer's that is considered a wanderer, right? Sometimes when people have Alzheimer's, they cannot stay in one place. They constantly say, I want to go home. So if they are in a room by themselves, they open the door to the house, they walk out. That causes major safety issues, right? So for that individual, you either need to have someone that is watching them all the time, or they cannot stay home by themselves. So that's one issue. The other side of it is that some of us, especially if we have lost our spouse and we are at home by ourselves, and again, family members are not around as much, but we are social individuals. If we are at home, maybe with just one caregiver, that doesn't create that environment, that stimulation that we need. Whereas staying at home may not, again, be the best option. The third reason for that could be when you're staying at home and you have a caregiver, in general, because the ratio is 1-to-1, you have one caregiver, one client, the costs are usually higher. Whereas if you move outside home to a community where they have many caregivers, then the ratio is different, and the cost for the same level of, for the same quality of life could be lower than that. So all of those could be reasons why we may not want to live at home and go out. Now, I made a distinction. I put the space between the two. So there are two options for staying or living outside home. One is if we were to be at a nursing home. The other term for it is called skilled nursing facility, or in short, it's called SNF. That's a medical facility. A lot of people use the term nursing home and the communities interchangeably. So I want to make sure we make that distinction. Nursing home is what we want to avoid. Why do we go to a medical facility? Maybe because we fell. Right? We had a broken hip, we go to the hospital, then we are sent to a nursing home to go through the rehab. Maybe there are some wounds, we need to get some wound care. What we want to do is we want to stay healthy. So put all the measures that we need to put in place so we can avoid the nursing home. Obviously, if we have some illness, we have to go to the nursing home. Now, the non-medical community is the second option that I was talking about. So when I say home may not be the best option, the next best option could be a non-medical facility. There are different kinds they're called communities. So there's an independent living community, is a community where they provide the meals, they have caregiving if it is needed, they help make sure that you take your medication, they do the housekeeping, they do the laundry, they have outings, they have activities, they have transportations. So again, for someone who doesn't want to worry about all of that, an independent living community would be a good option. Assisted living is basically the same as independent living with additional caregiving, with more caregiving. Okay, sure. And then residential care home or board and cares, you may have seen these. These are houses. These are basically regular houses with maybe 5 or 6 residents. They are governed by the same rules and regulations as the assisted living. So they're all licensed by the state of California. But what it is that you would be living with maybe 4 or 5 other residents. You would either have your private room or a shared room. There would be caregivers. They would do the meals. They would do the laundry. They would do the housekeeping and all of that. So the difference between the two would be one is a larger community, maybe with 50 to 100 to 200 residents, each having their own room, and the other one would be a small house that can accommodate 5 or 6 individuals. If you could go to the next slide, thank you. So as part of this, the service that we provide is a free service to the clients. So we do the assessment with the clients, and based on the needs, if staying at home is an option, is through the caregiving. If staying at home is not an option, what we do is that we have a database of about at least 70 of these communities, both the large and the small. I personally have visited each one of these communities. I meet with the administrator, take a tour of the community. We have a detailed checklist of what these communities offer, what the price is, what services, what amenities, and all of that. So once we do the assessment with the clients or the family members, then we can identify 2 or 3 communities that meet the requirements. We can make the appointments. Sometimes the communities have promotions where they waive some of the fees, and so we can help with all of that, and that would be as part of the option too. And if we can go to the next slide. How would clients in general pay for these services? So if you have, the third item is long-term care insurance. If you have long-term care insurance, long-term care covers these services. It is, the other options are the personal pay, if there are retirement savings, if Social Security payments, if there's a pension payment, will cover that. If you are a veteran or a surviving spouse of a veteran, there is a benefit as part of the veteran's benefit. It's called aid and attendance. It is different than the medical benefit that you would receive. You could very well qualify, and there are some qualifications for that, but as a veteran, you could qualify for up to $1,700 a month tax-free payment by the VA. As a surviving spouse, you could qualify for up to $1,300 to $1,400 a month, and the payments would go directly to your bank account. But there needs to be, go through some qualifications for that, basically. And we have been told there are literally billions of dollars of aid and attendance that is sitting on the table because people are not claiming those, those benefits. So, thank you again.
So let me share with you, since I was a caregiver, and I heard the gentleman mention about, I need time off. So here you have a city council member dealing with one of the mega projects in the world, and I have a number of phone calls of potholes, street lights out, and other issues, and this is still on my plate. I do want you to understand that it's a blessing to identify that when you have Loli and her team that pre-screen the caregivers, it does give you a level of confidence knowing that that person that comes into the home is not going to be a pedophile, is not going to be an abuser because they've been pre-screened. I also want to stress that there is a difference between being a caregiver and a housekeeper. So when you're talking about, I want them to fix the meals, anything involving the individual, they take care of, including they're incontinent, they spill food as they're eating, that kind of stuff. They will clean the floor, do that. They will do the laundry. They will strip the bed and remake the bed, all that kind of stuff. But as a housekeeper, they do the dusting, they do the overall mopping, they do the cleaning of the bathroom. They don't do that. The other thing that's really nice about having a caregiver service that's pre-screened, my friend sometimes can be cantankerous. And he would say, I'm tired of her. I want somebody else. Or they're not giving me the attention that I need. And I can go to Loli, and without hesitation, I get replacements. The other concern may be, you may have a preference of a male versus a female, a person that speaks a certain language that is able to do that. She's able to provide that kind of accommodations. Again, these are just options because with my friend, I had to encourage him, because he said they don't provide medical care. But when I'm working with the internal medical doctor for his well-being, I had to motivate him to exercise, because my goal was to keep him from not going in a nursing facility where he was going to become a vegetable, but be able to enjoy the quality of life of his tender years in his own home. And also, he enjoyed companionship. When he would finish his bath, because I made him take a shower every day, the caregiver was required to stay there for him to bathe, not in the room, but in earshot, so if he did fall, that we were able to take the necessary care. Also, we went over the menus of the hot meals that he should have, or the snacks he could have, because I had to make sure he didn't get too much sugar and too much starch, those kind of things. You work with the caregivers for that. And then finally, I do want to stress more making sure that he had hot meals or balanced meals, because my friend loved ice cream. But I had to make sure we can do it sparingly, and so his treat was knowing that for his dinner he would have a scoop of ice cream to be able to make that happen. So I've experienced it, as you can hear my testimony about it, and Loli was on my team, and her workers became my best friends.